most hated vehicle is definitely the Mark II. There's no way that isn't. The shit's so hated that even people that don't play GT Online know about it. Do you think they'll do more next DLC? I don't think so. I think the Mark II, like, there's a few inherent issues with the Mark II, which is just its design itself, which you cannot fix. The Mark II is just, it's a small object, just going through the, you know, flying through the air. That's something you cannot fix. You know, it's nimble. It's like, it's already by design a lot of things that are positive about it. And the game at this point is like also kind of built around people having a Mark II. It's just, it needs a fat ass turning circle. I don't think there's really much they can do about it, but there's like other outliers in free roam PvP now though that probably needs some looking into as well though. I think the inherent issue of the Mark II is just the lack of choice of other options out there too. I think if there's one thing that you could probably do to balance out and like kind of phase out the Mark II, is like allowing aircraft to spawn directly behind you as well instead of having to go to specific spots in the map. Because then, I mean, I'm purely saying this out of selfish reasons, if that's the thing, then I guess you will see an increase in Radu uses. But at the very least, the Radu is, I guess, in some ways better balanced. Yeah, like, it's not, it's you know, from a weapon point of view, it's pretty balanced. It's, you know, like with the Radu, like, you know, it's something that's, you know, from the ground you can hit it with an explosive sniper pretty easily. Purely available from the Terabyte, that makes no difference, dude. It really just doesn't. Also the fact that there's a 5-minute cooldown time on it's, you know, they've nerfed it in plenty of ways that is significant at this point. That doesn't, but that won't really change anything though, Turkey. Like, the inherent issue with the Mark II is just how easy it is to use. Not only from a PvP perspective, but also just purely from a PvE perspective. Like, the Mark II is such a crutch that it's like, really, if there's one thing that Rockstar made a mistake with, it's the Mark II. They left it being overpowered for so long that everyone became like the must-have in literally any scenario. PvE, everything. Yeah, I mean, sure, Manitech definitely helped with that too, and it's definitely a good counter to it. But the abundance of vehicles that have still got ridiculous tracking on missiles and stuff like that is something that's also still needs to get looked into. I mean, look at the Ruiner, the Stromberg, you know, the list goes on. The balance really isn't still there. If a vehicle is able to do like 360 loops and whatnot and get a kill with the press of a button, it's unbalanced and overpowered. The Ruiner has 8 missiles and no defense, but there's nothing inherently wrong with there being like some decent tracking on it and everything. But the moment it can just go this, it's a problem. If it's expensive, yeah, but just because something is expensive doesn't mean it has to be incredibly overpowered. Like, if there's one thing that will never make any difference in terms of balancing the game, it's money. Because money is something that can easily be acquired in the game. Because there's various ways of making good money in this game. And that just becomes a matter of time, especially with the player base. 99% of the player base probably has a Mark II somewhere. $8 million is just basically Rockstar going, okay, so you want the best vehicle in the game? You're gonna have to pay for it. Either you play the game for a while or you're cough up some shark cards. They can't remove the rockets? No, they don't have to remove the rockets, because the Mark II rockets at this point are you know, are definitely in a better spot than they were before. I think in their pursuit, in that time period where they released all those vehicles, they were just looking to add interesting and fun vehicles to use, and they never really considered the fact what it would do with the PvP balance. And then when it was too far gone and they realized how much they fucked it up, they knew it was too late and they never bothered to even do anything about it until it was time to go like, we need some content and something meaningful and make people excited to play the game again, so let's nerf the Mark II. And I'm hoping that they've learned their lessons for when 6 rolls around. Having fun vehicles with like lock-on missiles and the whole shebang is very much GTA, and I'm sure a lot of people identify that to be the game, but balance the Mark II will make the agility worse. I don't think the Mark II needs to have the worst agility and stuff though. The rockets don't need to be slower and weaker on the Mark II. It's, you know, like at this point the Mark II, the only people that are getting kills with it were always good with it anyway. Like I think agility is fine and all, but it's still a small vehicle though. Helicopters in general are just like kind of slow and sluggish because they're big. Like no matter how slow and sluggish you're gonna make the Mark II, at that point it's like it loses the identity of what the vehicle actually is. A lot of times helicopters are just not, you know, just simply not good. Would 80 miles per hour fix it though, Turkey? Because it still is a small vehicle, right? Anyone doing a bit of moving about will outmaneuver anyone trying to shoot them. And large turning, and then completely destroying what the vehicle is. At this point, I don't think it matters what you do to the Mark II. It's just that everyone is just so you know, is just completely just stuck with using it, because no matter what you will do to the Mark II, it will always be the ultimate convenient vehicle to use. You can spawn it instantly from your MC menu, you can hop on it, hop off it, fly over buildings like it's nothing. Even if you nerf the speed back to 80 miles per hour, it will still be the thing that everyone uses. Because the utility of the Mark II is too high. And that will probably will never change unless they remove the vehicle. It's really that simple. But why would you want to turn the thruster, or why would you want to turn the Mark II into a thruster? They're two completely different vehicles. At that point, instead of nerfing the Mark II, make the thruster more worth it. Make the thruster more nimble. Make the thruster more, you know, more appealing to use. Instead of nerfing the Mark II constantly, just reel in other vehicles that have become more worthwhile to use. One way of balancing a game isn't to nerf the one thing that is overpowered, it's also to bring other things into the mix and make them more appealing to use, which at the moment, compared to the Mark II, is simply not the case. Would you pick a Mark II over a Ruiner 2000? All the fucking time. Why? Because you can fly over buildings and do everything. If someone shoots at you with a missile, the Ruiner 2000 is going to die. The Mark II will be able to dodge it because it's agile. The list goes on. I just want variety, then use something else. The appeal to many people is simply not there. And that's fair enough, because why would you? The game is balanced in such a way where everything is also kind of just balanced around the fact that the Mark II exists, because it's the ultimate, you know. I bring it up often because it's a game that, you know, in many ways faces similar issues with like stuff that gets overused and all the time, right? Like if you look at something like a Destiny 2, right, you have certain items and stuff like that they overhaul and like change in a meaningful way so it becomes more appealing to use, rather than constantly nerf the things that are the most useful, right? Try making other things more appealing so that way people will start using that, or well, more often, more so than just simply sticking to the one best thing. Exactly, yeah. Like, the fact you can, exactly what George said, the fact you can spawn literally anything instantly next to you, right? Like, why do you think, the reason why I'm always at MC is because I can instantly spawn a bike behind me. I don't have to wait several seconds for a car to spawn behind me. If I want to use my Raju instead of my Mark II, which I would prefer to do, I have to go to a different location while not being able to use my personal vehicle because it replaces it. I'm just simply stuck with the fact that the Mark II is too much of an inconvenience. And everything else in the game is inconvenient. So by default, everyone is gonna go for the thing that they can spawn the quickest and is also convenient. Yeah, the buzzard was a convenience thing too. It still is, but the buzzard is vastly outperformed by the fact that the Mark II, like, compare the buzzard, any helicopter, right? Even the Sparrow, which you can also spawn behind you, to a Mark II, right? It does the same thing, but by the time I have my helicopter ready to go and start spinning, right? The Mark II is already at the objective. So why would I, as a player who just simply wants to spend their time the most efficient way possible because I'm trying to make money or whatever it is that I do in the game, why would I use anything else with the Mark II? Why would I use a helicopter? Because there is no reason to do so. If there was a way how you can have the helicopter and let it, like, basically let it run as you are just going inside of a building or whatever like that, at that point a helicopter becomes more versatile or more used to use. But that's not the case, because of realism and because of immersion that Rockstar has done, the helicopter turns off the moment you get out of it. Now, from a game perspective and like immersion and all that stuff, that's nice, but from a gameplay balance perspective, it means that the Mark II, once again, is the more convenient option. Yeah, the jetpack is another case too, right? If there are options within the game that could counter the Mark II for being so convenient. The jetpack is just isn't satisfying to use. The jetpack feels sluggish, right? If they were to give like the jetpack the ability to give it like the handling that you would be able to give it like in a hangar or whatever, right? And just like a slightly better rockets. But the jetpack is just a shit vehicle to use. It's just not good. It's slow, it's sluggish. right? And there's no good reason to use it. Like, there, look, this took me how many seconds to spawn this thing? Or like any bike for that matter. Again, I think the predominant issue with the Mark II is its size. I mean, at this point, there probably is better stuff than the Mark II in terms of like weapon and lock on and everything, really. The main overpowerness of the Mark II is just it's hard to hit.